You know, I've been thinking, what if humility isn't folding yourself up so small that no one is bothered by your existence, but the joy of finally telling the truth about who you are in front of God and everybody? If that sounds a little scary and a little wonderful at the same time, you're in the right place. Welcome to A Quiet Catechism, our series on virtues and interior life. Today, we're talking about humility, what it really is, why it feels so threatening, and how it might change your actual Tuesday. Now, when I say humility, a lot of us picture something pretty grim. We think hating myself, saying I'm trash, but holy trash, or folding ourselves up so tiny that no one is ever inconvenienced by us. And maybe you know that person who apologizes for existing. I'm sorry I breathed near you, you know? Or we play the strange little sport after parish council meetings. Who can insult themselves most poetically in the parking lot? Here's the thing. That's not humility. In the Catholic imagination, humility is far stranger and honestly, much more bracing. Humility is the joy of finally telling the truth about who you are in front of God and everybody. The saints are in agreement on this. They say humility isn't just one virtue in a long list. It's the ground floor. It's the foundation under the whole house of the spiritual life. St. Augustine says, if you ask him how to reach Christ, he'll answer, first humility, second humility, third humility. He's not subtle. St. Teresa of Avila, who does not mince words, says, humility is the truth. Without it, she says, nothing in the spiritual life can grow. And St. Thomas Aquinas, our patient engineer of the soul, he calls humility the virtue that keeps us within our own bounds, not grabbing at things above us, not inflating ourselves, but standing in reality as creatures before the Creator. He says humility restrains the mind from immoderately high things, like a governor on an engine that keeps it from tearing itself apart. I love that image because pride can feel like that, can't it? Revving higher and higher, afraid to slow down. Now, notice what none of them say. No one says humility is thinking you are garbage. No one says humility means you pretend you don't have gifts. Humility is not groveling. Humility is accurate self-knowledge in front of God. And then C.S. Lewis strolls into the conversation like the Anglican uncle at the reunion, and he says, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. You've heard that line before. It's a good one. That's the real thing. Not self-hatred, not pretending, but a blessed self-forgetfulness that frees you from the exhausting project of displaying yourself all of the time. Now, if humility is that beautiful, why do we resist it with every tendon in our body? Part of the answer is pride. Pride is not stupid. Pride is the cleverest of the vices. St. Augustine says that pride turned angels into devils, and humility makes human beings like angels again. That's a big claim. Pride is like a spiritual fake ID. It's the attempt to live as if I'm self-made, self-secured, self-explaining. It whispers to you, your worth depends on your performance. your image, your control. And you know what? It's thrilling for a while. You feel like, I've got this. I'm holding the world together. Until one day, it starts to feel like carrying a refrigerator up a spiral staircase, alone. And then along comes humility. And humility threatens this little empire. Humility says, very gently, you are not the center. Humility suggests your gifts are actually gifts. You didn't invent them. Humility dares to say that your sins are real, that your wounds are not the whole story, and that you might actually need help. To a proud heart, that sounds like death. And in a way, it is a kind of death. The death of the fantasy that you can save yourself. But because we're clever, we make knockoffs of humility so we can dodge the real thing. One knockoff is self-contempt. I'm worthless. Everyone's better than me. But who's still at the center of that sentence? Me. Another knockoff is people-pleasing. That's just fear wearing a polite smile. I will trust myself into whatever you need, as long as you don't withdraw your approval. And then there's spiritual cosplay. We say humble words, we strike humble poses, but somewhere inside, we're hoping people notice how holy we really are. St. Teresa of Avila, who could smell this from miles away, calls us back to something wonderfully simple. Walk in reality. Don't inflate yourself. And don't shrink yourself. Just tell the truth. All right, let's pause for a moment. So far, here's what we've seen. Humility is not self-hatred. It's the truth about who you are before God. The saints say it's the foundation, the ground floor. Pride is the fake ID that makes us live as if we're self-made, and there are cheap imitations of humility. Self-contempt, people-pleasing, spiritual cosplay that still keep us stuck on ourselves. Real humility is truthful, freeing, and strangely joyful. That's where we are. Now, I want to give you a picture you can carry with you. Humility has two directions, like the cross, with its vertical and its horizontal crossbar. St. Teresa calls humility truth. That truth looks up toward God, and it stretches out toward other people. First, the vertical. Humility is simply recognizing that God is God, and you are not. We say that so easily, but our hearts spend most days auditioning for the role of providence. I'll hold everything together, thanks. I'll fix everyone. Humility here becomes adoration. It's that shiver of finally letting God be vast and letting yourself be small without panic. St. Augustine discovers this in his Confessions. He stands in front of God and tells the truth, his sins, his limits, his confusion. And right there in that honesty, he discovers mercy. Then there's the horizontal. Humility is seeing yourself soberly in the human family. You're not the hero of every scene. You're not the villain of every scene. You are one member among many, gifted in some ways, needy in others. St. Paul tells the Romans, don't think of yourselves more highly than you ought, but think with sober judgment. Each of you is a member of the body, he says. You have gifts, and those gifts are for others. That's humility. Not erasing your gifts, but receiving them as equipment for service rather than weapons of comparison. C.S. Lewis points out something lovely here. Genuine humility actually makes you freer and more cheerful. When you're not frantically curating your image, you can laugh at yourself. You can receive correction without collapsing. You can thank God for your talents without building a little shrine to them. And you can rejoice honestly when someone else succeeds. Now, here's the part that still shocks me every time I say it out loud. Christianity dares to say that God is humble. Not humble like insecure or unsure of himself. Humble in the sense of self-emptying love. In Jesus, the eternal Son, he takes on our smallness. He washes dirty feet. He eats with people whose reputations are not great. He allows himself to be misunderstood, rejected, even killed. St. Paul says he emptied himself, taking the form of a servant. So when you see Jesus kneeling with a towel or hanging on the cross, you're not watching God hold his nose and do something beneath himself. You're seeing exactly what divine love looks like when it shows up in our world. So humility is not God asking you to stoop lower than he has. Humility is God inviting you into his own way of being. So let's bring this all the way down into the very unmystical setting of your actual Tuesday. Picture this. You're in that meeting again. You already know which one. The same colleague is gently angling for credit, and in your chest, your heart is drafting a very eloquent speech about your own importance. Or you're in the kitchen. Someone you love has just misread your intentions again, and you think, how many times do I have to explain myself? Or you're alone on the couch, scrolling, watching other people's curated lives parade past you. And there's that familiar cocktail of envy and self-disgust. In those moments, those exact moments, humility is not a grand gesture. It's a very small, very quiet turning. Under your breath, you pray, Lord, show me the truth here about you, about me, about them. And give me the courage to live inside that truth. And then humility might look like this. It might mean saying nothing when you desperately want to defend yourself. It might mean apologizing, even when you were only about 60% at fault. It might mean putting the phone downward, stepping away from the comparison game before it devours your whole evening. And honestly, none of this feels heroic. It often feels like loss. But slowly, through these almost invisible choices, humility carves out in you a place where God can rest. It starts to become easier to laugh at yourself. You become quicker to forgive. You become slower to despise. You begin to discover that you do not have to be the main character to be deeply loved. The pressure eases, and you start to suspect that the truth about you, that you are small, sinful, gifted, and wanted, is not bad news after all. It's the best possible news. So when pride flares today, when the need to be seen or vindicated or admired tightens your chest, here's a simple pattern. Stop. Breathe once and say, Jesus, who are humble of heart, let me tell the truth with you here. And then just take the next small step in love. As we close, I want to speak this over you like a quiet blessing. This week, may humility come to you not as a heavy weight, but as a gentle relief. May you experience humility as the joy of telling the truth about who you are in front of God and everybody. May your small daily choices, the unspectacular ones, carve out a resting place for God in your heart. May you know deep down that you do not have to be the main character to be deeply, fiercely loved. You are small, yes, You are sinful. Yes. You are gifted. Yes. And you are wanted. So when pride rises, when your chest tightens with the need to be seen, stop. Breathe. Pray. Jesus, humble of heart, let me tell the truth with you here. And then take the next small step in love. Thanks for walking through this with me. Go gently. Walk in truth. We'll talk soon. Let's begin.